Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Rising Sun Retro here, and I wanted to talk a little bit about a game that I played during this whole pandemic that's going on. See, I live in Japan, and for about 3 months I was locked down and I was unable to really leave and go out and do anything else. So, I have a few games that are on my PS3 that I never got to. I purchased them years ago, but for some reason I just never really ended up beating them, and one of those games was the first Resident Evil. I play the Japanese versions of most games because I've been studying Japanese now for about 7 or 8 years. So today I thought I'd like to talk about Biohazard, or as we call it, Resident Evil. So Resident Evil was released in Japan in 1996 with a US release following 8 days later, and the US release is censored when compared to the Japanese version, which features a longer opening cinematic and more gore in the gameplay. Besides censorship, the Japanese version is actually a little bit easier, with auto-aim being enabled by default, enemies taking less damage to defeat, more ink ribbons scattered around, and the characters having a little bit more health. The original Japanese release also features a different ending song, Yume de Owaresenai, which translates to I don't want this to end as a dream. Now, allegedly, the game's producers actually didn't even want the song to be in there, but apparently the Capcom higher-ups had struck a deal with the artist, so they were sort of forced to put it in. I don't know, I didn't like the song too much at first, but then I listened to it a few more times, and I think it grew on me after a while. What do you guys think about it? So I think most people know that Capcom's kind of well known for re-releasing their games a bunch of times, and Resident Evil is no exception. The director's cut comes with an all-new arrange mode, which mixes up the items in the house, in addition to giving you some cool, unique camera angles. There's also a new beginner mode. What is nifty about this release is it actually comes with a bonus disc, which lets you play a trial version of Resident Evil 2. It only takes you through the beginning of the game, but it's a nice little bonus. So for a quick rundown of the game, we have Chris and Jill, our two protagonists, and you play through each of their stories and try to escape from the mansion. Seems simple enough, except you're stuck in corridors with hungry zombies and other creatures. Sure, the zombies are less varied than they are in the other games, but, you know, for a PS1 game, it's not too bad. Chris's hard mode, and so what that means is he has less item space, and because he's not bestowed the title of King of Unlocking, he has to go and find his small keys in order to open up drawers and other doors. Jill, on the other hand, is a police officer with dubious skills, so she has a few more spaces in her inventory, and you won't need to go find small keys. In total, there's 3 different areas: the mansion, courtyard and guardhouse, and the underground laboratory. You'll visit each of the areas a few times. There's a lot of backtracking in this game because of the items you have to get, but it's fun exploring each part of every area. Both characters have their own helper. In Jill's case, she has Barry, and Rebecca aids Chris. But we'll talk more about her in a later video. And let me tell you, even on the so-called easier version, this game is tough. It might be a combination of the controls and the difficulty, but it is hard, and it definitely took me a long time to beat on the first go-through. So there's a lot of things I love about this game. Of course, Resident Evil is known for having some good puzzles, and I think the puzzles in this game are good. They don't really seem too out of place for the most part. I mean, the mansion in general is just kind of freaky, so having an art gallery I think fits. And I just gotta say, I love the music in here. There really is something about composers in this era working with what they had under their constraints and coming out with some real bangers. Put some headphones on and get in a dark room because you will really feel like you're back in the 1990s again, and it's awesome. It's definitely really fun to play it like that. In fact, you should just play every Resident Evil game that way. Hurry up, do it. Okay, so I talked a little bit about what's good, and I'm gushing over the music, the atmosphere, and more or less the gameplay, but of course we know this game is not perfect, and my god, those tank controls are really hard to get past. It's tough, and it's really hard to get over that initial hump if you're not used to it. I know that some people might not like the inventory management, but I didn't think it was too bad actually. I think Chris might be a little bit tough with his limited slots. I mean, yeah, I don't mind it too much. It does get annoying when you're in a high pressure situation, but it's not so bad. After all, it's a survival horror game. And speaking of horror, there's no autosave, there's nothing like that. You have to make sure you save from a typewriter because if you don't, you get far and then all of a sudden you die, maybe because you thought you had more health than you really did. You gotta go all the way back. Now I know this doesn't seem like a big deal as I'm explaining it, but trust me, after a while when you play the same part over and over again, you're going to stop saving because you think you have it figured out, you're going to make it a little bit farther, and then you're going to end up dying because of whatever reason, and when you have to go all the way back, it definitely is a little disheartening. Okay, so what's the deal? Can I recommend this game in 2020? Is it worth playing? Sort of. Look, if you can get past the outdated controls, the save system, and the menus, I think you'll be able to have a good time. But again, the controls are a huge part of the game, and I definitely get it if that's something that's not your cup of tea. The game was a game changer, and it's fun to go back and experience something that revived the zombie genre. But at the same time, if you're only focused on the story of the game and you don't really care about the gameplay itself, just go play the remake. Of course, it's got better graphics, controls, and everything like that. So on a scale of 1 to 5 stars, I guess I'd give this 3. I mean, it sounds bad, but it is a good game. That being said, it was outshined by its sequels, and especially when trying to play it nowadays, it's just really hard to get back into it. If you're a fellow Japanese learner by any chance and you want to give Biohazard a shot, I recommend downloading it off the PSN store because it's real cheap. I think it's only 628 yen right now. It's not too bad. You'll come across some difficult vocabulary when you look at the files, but the general vocabulary in the game isn't so bad. Of course, the files is where you get most of your puzzle information from, so if you've never played the game before, you're definitely going to need a dictionary handy. It'll be a challenge, but at least you'll learn how to say Jill sandwich in Japanese.
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right. Barry, thanks for saving my life.
Well, thanks for making it this far and watching video number 1. I really appreciate it. If you liked what you saw, give me a like and a subscribe if you have the time. And I'll see you in the next one.
Jill sandwich.